What's up, guys? Welcome back to another speed paint. This one took me about 2 hours, a little more, a little less, but we've managed to break it down into 10 minutes here for you, so I hope you enjoy. I also only did this on one layer. Normally I would do groups of things, so I would do the hair on its own layer, the face on its own layer, etc. But since everything is on its own layer, it's kind of harder for me to be more precise, because like if I change one thing, then it kind of messes with the other things. You know, it's like a real painting almost, you know, as close as I can get through the digital landscape. But yeah, so you can see me trying to like separate, you know, everything from one another that way. Even though they're not on different layers, I can still sort of see where the hair begins and ends, the face begins and ends, this shirt begins and ends. I imagined a scarf when I was painting it, but I think it's like a shirt, honestly. And it was really fun, you know. I think painting in this way on one layer kind of gives you the incentive to have the mindset of going with the flow and not really, because once you change something, you're gonna have to like fix something else, and it's all like tied together, and so you can't be afraid to just like mess something up, really. Because it's just gonna happen, it's inevitable. And so it was kind of fun, in my opinion. So I really enjoyed that part of it. Because with painting, it always starts off so rough. I mean, right now I still think it's looking pretty rough, but it's gonna get better, I promise. I promise it's gonna keep looking better. And that's what you gotta focus on. You gotta be like, okay, it's not looking good right now, but I know that like eventually it's gonna look better. And I'm not gonna say the end product or the end result was perfect, but it definitely looks better than this, in my opinion. The great thing about art is that you can always start over or like redo it or, you know, remix it. You can even just go on top of another painting and completely start over and do something completely different if you want. And that's why like I find digital painting to be so exciting, because once you get a software, I mean, it's not like you have to pay for paint or anything, so you can just always paint anything that you want as long as you know how to paint it. But that definitely is the hardest part when it comes to painting, is knowing like colors, shapes, like all the things that seem really simple but end up being like the biggest headaches when you actually start painting. I did not know I was even going to be painting this when I had first started. I just started scribbling, and the next thing I know, I'm ending up with a dude and all this, and just kind of like the first thing that really came to my mind, I just sat down and said, all right, let's get it done, let's paint it. And that's what you're seeing right now, is just, you know, me going through the motions of trying to find the right painting, you know. Obviously this is a speed paint, so the actual painting was sped up about 1700%. But I actually did it in a pretty quick amount of time. I didn't take any breaks, and I finished it within, like I said, 2 hours. And yeah, so I find it's good to give yourself like a pacing, give yourself an amount of time to paint, and actually fulfill that amount of time. It's almost like meditation, I guess, but anyways. I definitely got the proportions off, you know. Not everything is exactly how it should be, but that's what's gonna happen when, you know, you're kind of doing it all together. You're not gonna be able to be as accurate as you would be if you were maybe separating everything into individual parts and working on them like that. I had an extremely tough time with the hair. You can see me messing around with it, trying to create shape and volume, and I eventually, well, I think I added too much volume at some point, because I was just like, okay, it's starting to look like a helmet or something. So I decided, you know what, let's scrap the hair. That's not even hair anymore, that's a hat. So I turned them into one of those like those fluffy, I don't know what they're called, but they're supposed to keep your head warm in the winter. Which I think actually worked out. Looks pretty good in my opinion. And I'd use a lot of like very, I want to say like dark, neutral coloring. I couldn't really decide where I wanted the lighting to be coming from. And here you can see I use the clipping tool, which is the only time I use this tool in the whole painting, which I usually use a lot more often. So I don't know if that's because I was on one canvas layer. That's just something I noticed. And I'm putting some trees in the background. I don't know why I made the ground so dark. I was like, I know I need to make the background darker. So I just went ahead and made the whole background dark. And then I was like, wait a second. he should be in the snow. So I had to add the snow, but to make it darker again, I had to add some trees. So we're gonna bring the trees back, and I'm not really an expert on trees, so I just drew lines, like literally just straight lines. Added some lightings, like highlighting and shadows to him a little bit. And the thing about the background is there should never be too many details. So when I add like a lot of lines to it and like too many lines, I realize like, wait, this is the background. I need to blur it out, make bigger shapes, because if you make tiny little details, it's gonna attract people's eyes and they're gonna want to look at that. So we're gonna try to save those little details and stuff for the face, or whatever you can see of the face. You see me trying to add snow to the tops of these trees. I think the perspective of this is a little off. Like, how can we see the tops of the trees, but also his face? I don't know, it doesn't seem right to me. But, you know, obviously it's over now, it's over now. We did what we had to do. I figured the lighting was coming from the right. Figured the light was coming from the right, so might as well just add shadows from the trees. Thought that helped a little bit, make it a little bit more realistic. Added some airbrushing to the highlights of the hat, just so that way it kind of pops a little bit more, gets a little bit more focus on the guy and not so much the background. And I thought the face was super dark, given the fact that he's surrounded by snow that's just clearly bouncing off this light. So I had to brighten up the face a whole bunch. Faces are one of the things that I like to paint, but I do not paint them often. So anytime I get the opportunity, I try to go hard. So you see I actually zoomed in here to get close up on the face. I didn't zoom in the entire painting, which is also something I normally don't do. I'll be zooming in all the time and like working on the details. Since I knew that it was gonna be a rough start and it was gonna be sloppy to get to the finish, I just stayed zoomed out and just focused on like bigger shapes and ideas rather than the tiny little details. Because so now that we're here at the end, I can zoom in and work on the little details, which you're seeing me do on this face, trying to get all the creases and folds. Just, you know, the shadows of the hat are important. Any little lighting and shadow effect I could really bring into his face to create the shapes of like his facial features. Just blending in darker colors wherever I see creases, and then adding like lighter lights where I think light might hit. The eye is always the most fun part for me. I like doing the reflections inside of the eye, or like the iris, really. That's always fun. Eyelashes I definitely could do better at. Something about it is a little off. I think maybe I should have blended them out. I think that's where I messed up with the eyelashes. I added some airbrushing effect to the face, so generally just like pinker cheeks, redder nose, and then he has sort of like a 5 o'clock shadow, so I added just a little blue airbrush to his jaw area. And then a little airbrushing on the eye, just to make those lights sort of really pop or glow on the eye. I tried doing some gray hairs in the eyebrows, but yeah, I think it was looking strange, so I just decided to keep the eyebrow how it was, but just reshape it maybe, because I knew something was off about it, but I didn't know what exactly, which I still think the shape is a little weird, but it's kind of interesting, so we're gonna keep it. Figured I should realize that there's probably light also bouncing off the snow, so it's probably gonna hit his upper lid, like right where his his upper eye meets the eyebrow. You add the lacrimal caruncle, and you're good. Piece is done. That's it. That took me 2 hours. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think it looks a lot better than it did when we first started, for sure. I think, you know, I think I could have done a little better. His cheeks, I feel, are a little young looking and rosy. Like, I can't tell how old this guy is, but nonetheless, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you learned something. See you guys later.